pretty pretty harsh stuff. Let's turn it towards now. What is the thing you do like to see against being gentle on the field?
Yeah, like the phrase I would always yell, and I think anybody that played for me or parents of kids that played for me would hear me yell it all the time, but it's the phrase good battle. And I loved it when you had those moments on the field where this could go either way. This is a 50-50 moment. These two players, one of my players that I'm invested in, that I care for, is going to battle this stranger on another team, whether it's a 50-50 ball that they're going for in the air. In basketball, it would just be a loose ball on the ground. But like those moments where someone might get hurt here, or someone's going to walk away a winner and a loser in this situation, and to just see them battle. And I would constantly yell on the field, good battle, whether my player walked away with the ball or not. And I think just being excited to be on a field where my players could battle with somebody else. And there were plenty of times where, I'd have a player going for a 50-50 ball and I'm yelling good battle as I'm watching the other team dribble away with the ball. But what mattered to me was that we had a space where they could be at their very best, where they could play with a lot of passion and a lot of heart and not feel like they had to hold back. So for me, it was never about yelling, we won that battle, or let's win that battle. Let's just have a good battle where we can play this sport at the highest level that we train for, that we want to play for, and not be restricted, not feel like we have to hold back. So I was always equally excited in those moments where I knew, okay, this could go either way, even when the other team walked away with the ball in that moment, or they scored in that moment, or we got called for a foul in that moment. What was exciting to me was that we were able to create space where they were able to battle at the highest level, because those life lessons absolutely carry forward to life off the field. I want them to know that if they're a lawyer in the courtroom, that they can go in and do battle, that they don't have to be gentle in that situation. If I'm having surgery and that's my doctor, I want my doctor to go to battle for me. I don't want them to think I got to step back and be gentle and check my voice and not ruffle feathers. Boy, if you're going to do surgery on me, or if you're going to try a case, or if you're a police officer, if you're a teacher in front of students, whatever it is, I want you to be at your best. I want you to know that when the pressure's on, you can step up and do battle. And I think that those lessons happen at 8 years old and 15 years old and 40 years old. And we have to create space for kids to be able to battle and know that win or lose, they are capable of dealing with difficult things in their lives.
And you talked again about how words make worlds. Mm-hmm. And we'll say, fight for the ball, fight for it. And, my intention is just we say battling. But what I really like that word a lot more, because when we talk about fight for it, when there's a fight, somebody has to lose.
Right.
And that often, it also is when you hear fight, especially for women's sports, it'll be, well, they're not supposed to fight. Mm. Boys, are supposed to, and we do, walk up to each other when you're 8 and smack your friend in the head. You do that 8 through 28, and it's, hey, how you doing? But, which I support that. As the sole boy in my household, but I never actually grew up with that. It wasn't the idea of that. It was when my dad said, well, you got to, fight for the ball, get in there, work hard. It was more of just stick with it. Don't give up. Do your part, right. Put the effort into it. Don't worry about the outcome. But I do like the word battle, because when you hear, hey, that was an amazing battle. Right. When you hear about that, nobody actually even alludes to who won. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it actually alludes to that it didn't matter who won or lost.
Right. Right.
So I like that a lot. Now, I do when I ask, though, when you say, we want to battle, and I think about, when you coach people. And again, I try and get people I work with in my role. I'm developing 25 to 55-year-olds in doing a better, wherever they are, keep doing better. at their job, and I want them to battle through difficult days, which could be keeping up with their email inbox. It could be with, doing a calculation. It could be with dealing with the person next to them that day, whatever it is. But we're an introverted group for the most part. Like I said, I'm not your typical engineer. Most of them don't want to get on the air and talk all day like I do. So how do you deal with getting introverts to battle?
Yeah, I think I love studying introverts as an introvert. I think we are amazing creatures. I am certified as a Myers-Briggs facilitator, and certainly the Myers-Briggs personality assessment helps people understand their preference of being in an extroverted world or an introverted world. And really, when we talk about introverts and extroverts, we're talking about how we deal with energy. And so a lot of times there's this mindset that, well, extroverts are loud and outgoing and social, and introverts are quiet and shy and antisocial. And really, those are pretty inaccurate descriptions of what's going on psychologically and how we deal with energy. So one of the things that we know about introverts is they typically need time to process their thoughts. And so they may come across as shy and quiet and reserved and antisocial, but really what's happening there is they are dealing with their world in a very internal way. And so as a coach and as somebody who comes in and facilitates things for people, one of the things I'm keenly aware of is if I just rapid fire questions at people, those that have a preference towards extroversion are going to talk through their thoughts pretty quickly. Those with a preference towards introversion are going to need some time and space to process the question before they can actually speak the words. Introverts often struggle with what's called word retrieval, which just means they have all of these thoughts floating around their head, and just the way they're wired, they're not going to say those until they have some clarity. Extroverts are just going to keep talking, and then they're going to stop when it finally makes sense. And sometimes you're around an extrovert and you think, my goodness, it took her 20 minutes to say that. Well, she was just talking through everything, and then finally in the last 60 seconds figured out what she actually thought. Introverts are typically going through that process internally, and so they can come across as being maybe disconnected from the group. But extroverts are going through that process externally. Introverts are going through it internally. So I'm always aware when I ask a group a question to wait typically 8 to 10 seconds to give the introverts in the room time to process their thoughts. And it's pretty fascinating when I'm facilitating, because I'll tell groups that. I'll tell them exactly what I'm going to do, that I will typically ask a question, and then someone will answer, and then I'll probably ask the same question again, and someone else will answer, and then I'll ask the same question again. And I say that at some point there's probably going to be some silence, and I want you guys to know I'm okay with the silence. I'm just giving the introverts some time to process. And I'll tell them, I'll usually wait 8 to 10 seconds before I move on. And sure enough, the first time I ask it, an extrovert right away wants to talk through the answer. And then I'll ask it again, and then an extrovert wants to talk through their answer. And then I'll ask it again, and there'll be about 8 to 10 seconds of silence. And then finally, someone who hasn't spoken will raise their hand. And usually the group starts laughing like, wow, that was like a magic trick. How did you do that? Like, it's not magic. I'm just giving people time to process their thoughts. But another piece of that to working with introverts, I often hear from coaches, I have this group of players, they're introverts, I just can't get them to speak. They just never share with the group, and I know they have a lot to share, but I can't make that happen. So one of the first things I suggest is when you ask questions, give them time to process that. But the other thing is, how can you utilize small groups within your team? So I was doing a Myers-Briggs session with a group of adults. We probably had 30. And so we had just unpacked the whole introvert-extrovert dichotomy. And then I had said, okay, well, I've got some self-reflection questions, and I'm going to give you 3 choices of how you want to go about this. If you would like to go into the back corner with a large group and talk through this, feel free to do that. If you would like to just get a partner and kind of have a little bit more deep, meaningful conversation, you can do that. Or if you want to go through the self-reflection questions by yourself, you can do that. And I said, ready, set, go pick your spot. And sure enough, all the extroverts went to the back corner. Big group, 20 of them. They were as loud as could be. They were as engaged as can be in talking through that process. But the introverts were either drawn to being by themselves so that they could internally process a lot of stuff, or they wanted to pair up with one other person. Introverts typically hate small talk, And so being paired up with one person where they could jump in real deep to these self-reflection questions and have some meaningful conversation was attracted to them. And then I brought the whole group back together and we shared some thoughts. So for coaches or teachers or leaders who are feeling like I'm just not able to get my introverts to speak up, my advice would be, A, are you giving them enough time after you ask a question for them to process? And then B, what can you do to create space for them to either self-reflect a lot by themselves or with a partner where they can create some deep, meaningful conversation, and then let your extroverts kind of be in a larger group and then talk that out and then bring everybody back together. But so much of it is just about creating space and understanding that it's not about is someone outgoing or shy, social or antisocial. It's about how they deal with energy and how they want to process information.
Yeah, and I would also say that it is situational because I've had people tell me that, and again, it's all relative, that in school and the workplace, people say, oh, well, yeah, you just wind him up and let him go. You know, he'll do whatever he needs to do. And then when I get into actually athletics, coach say, well, he's the quietest guy I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And there is a word, I didn't know this was a thing, but it's omnivert. And it has to do with very situational and your level of confidence and the environment. And I tend to find that the louder people are, the more I can kind of say, well, I really don't feel the need I don't want to compete. Let me just kind of see what's going on. I'll pick my moment.
Right.
And the quieter it gets, that almost makes me nuts. So I jump to the front as if, nobody has the reins on this, of this horse. So I love the way the pause is important, and the repetition, because you definitely don't want to squash the energy of that person, whether, sports is the only time that they're able to speak up. A lot of those people may not be as confident in other situations speaking up.
Right.
And so I think the repetition is important too, because you don't want to penalize them.
Sure.
So as always, the hour has flown by. We've got a couple minutes left here, and Molly, let's wrap up again. And if there's any groups you're going to be talking to, any events, and again, your contact information, let's make sure we get that out to everybody right now.
Absolutely. Again, the website is apersonofInfluence.com, and my Twitter handle is Molly Grisham, MOLLY GRISHAM. And you can use the website to use my contact form to get me over email as well, or direct message me on Twitter. Be glad to chat with people. I always tell coaches or clients, whoever I'm working with, phone calls are free. So feel free to reach out to me over email and just say, hey, there's something I need to talk through. I'm not going to send you a bill for that. I would love the opportunity to hear what your situation is and maybe give you some insights and some tips and tools that don't necessarily involve hiring me or bringing me in to work with the group. Obviously, if that happens, that's wonderful. But anything in the areas of team building, leadership development, group facilitation, personality assessments, conflict resolution, all of those things are in my wheelhouse. All the stuff that really separates, I think, the great groups from the good groups. And there are plenty of teams, whether that's an athletic team or whether that's a working group, a corporate group, that they have all the talent in the world, but man, something's missing. And that's often where I come in. What are those missing pieces that I can help connect some dots and develop some skill sets in people that will allow individuals and groups to be more successful? I'll be speaking at the Women's Coaching Symposium in April in the Twin Cities, which is always a great event. And then really the next couple of months, most of my other work is pretty direct with teams, not a lot of other big speaking events coming up in the next couple of months. But I can certainly share that with you, Dave, over Twitter when I have those big events coming up so we can let your people know. But any ways that I can help people, I want to be a part of that. There's a reason my business is called Influence LLC. I want to use my influence and I want to help others to understand the significance of their own influence. So any ways that I can be a part of that, I would welcome.
Well, again, Molly, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic hour, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dave.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Well, it
Bye.
started out down a dirty